It's wild how a conflict in one relatively small part of the world can just send the entire global economy into a tailspin. It really exposes a fundamental weakness in how we power our world. So today, we're going to break down how this latest crisis has laid bare the fragility of fossil fuels and what a more secure energy future could actually look like.
And look, if you want to get a sense of just how serious this is, you just have to look at this quote. The International Energy Agency, we're talking about the world's energy watchdog, called this the worst oil crisis in history. That's not just some dramatic headline. It's a diagnosis of a major global problem. So what exactly set it all off?
Well, it all comes down to this one number, 20%. That is the staggering amount of all the world's oil that has to flow through one single narrow strip of water, the Strait of Hormuz. It is, without a doubt, one of the most critical choke points for the entire global economy.
So what happens when that vital artery gets clogged up by conflict? Well, the whole system basically has a heart attack, almost overnight. Tanker traffic, which is usually over 100 ships a day, just plummeted to single digits. The flow of energy that we rely on for everything was just choked off.
And that really gets us to the deeper issue here. This crisis isn't just about one strait or one regional conflict. It's about the built-in fragility of the entire fossil fuel system. A system that's pretty much always just one crisis away from falling apart.
And the thing is, this wasn't some freak accident, right? As a lot of analysts have been pointing out, what we're seeing is a symptom of a vulnerability that just keeps showing up again and again. Our dependence on fossil fuels basically means our economies are always exposed to geopolitical shocks and price swings that are completely out of our control.
Okay, so let's break down how this actually affects everyone. It's like a chain reaction, a huge domino effect. It's not just about what you pay for gas. When oil prices jump from 71 to over $100 a barrel, that's just the start. Then, shipping and supply chains grind to a halt. And since natural gas is a huge part of making fertilizer costs go through the roof. And that, in turn, threatens our food supply. It's all connected. And here's an analogy that just hits the nail on the head. We all remember how the 2022 invasion of Ukraine was a huge wake-up call for Europe about its dependency on Russian gas. Well, this crisis in the Strait of Hormuz is doing the exact same thing for major economies in Asia, but with their dependency on Middle Eastern oil.
And when you look at the numbers, you see why that comparison is so spot on. It's almost uncanny. Back in 2021, Europe was getting about a third of its natural gas from Russia. Fast forward to 2025, and Asia was relying on the Strait of Hormuz for 40% of its oil. The scale of the vulnerability is practically identical.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? Are we just stuck in this loop, doomed to repeat this cycle of conflict and energy crises over and over and over again? Or is there another way? Is there a way to build a system that's actually resilient?
Well, it turns out there might be a way out. And according to a ton of research, it all comes down to a fundamental shift in where we get our energy. The answer lies in the built-in advantages of renewables, which can act as a kind of shield against all this volatility.
I love this quote because it's so simple but so powerful. No blockade can stop the sun from shining. You just can't argue with that, can you? You can't put sanctions on the wind. That right there is the fundamental security advantage of renewable energy.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Once you build a solar farm or wind turbine, the fuel, the sunlight, the wind, it's free and it's local. This gives an economy a buffer from the wild price shocks and supply chain nightmares that constantly plague fossil fuels. Building out renewables isn't just a climate thing. It's a really smart economic and national security strategy.
And the best part? This isn't just some abstract idea. There are already people working on a huge, real-world blueprint to make this happen. It's an incredible project called the Peace Triangle.
Okay, so here's the big idea. The Peace Triangle is basically a new kind of energy superhighway. It's all about connecting the countries that have tons of sun and wind, like those in the Sunrise region, with local customers, and then creating export hubs to send all that clean energy over to places like Europe. It's a model built on cooperation, not conflict.
And the absolute core of this whole thing is a place they're calling the Sunrise region. It's a specific area covering parts of Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt that has been identified as a total sweet spot. I mean, it's got some of the best, most consistent solar and wind power anywhere on the planet.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The numbers are absolutely staggering. Just look at this chart. The solar potential in the Sunrise region is literally double what you'd find in the sunniest parts of Europe, like Greece or Italy.
That's not just a small advantage, that's a massive, game-changing difference.
Okay, so you've got all this amazing clean power. How do you actually get it to where it needs to go? Well, that's where this map comes in. We're talking about a whole network of high-voltage cables under the sea and maybe even pipelines for storable energy like green hydrogen, carrying all that clean potential straight into the European grid.
And get this, the potential here is just mind-blowing. If this project gets fully built out, it could supply up to 30% of all the electricity needed for Southeast and Central Europe. That is an absolute game changer for the entire continent's energy security.
But what's really fascinating is that this isn't just about electricity. It's about something much, much bigger. It's about totally rethinking the links between energy, security, and even peace in one of the most historically volatile parts of the world.
I mean, the ripple effects would be huge. You're creating new jobs and whole new industries. You're giving Europe real, lasting energy security. And here's the incredible part. You're encouraging historic rivals to actually work together on a project that benefits everyone. You're creating a real economic reason for peace and stability.
And this right here really sums up the whole strategy. The goal isn't for one country to hold all the cards. It's about building a web of interdependence, where producers and consumers and the countries in between all need each other. That actually makes the whole system and the whole region more stable for everybody involved.
So that kind of leaves us with this one big thought to chew on. In a world that's so often been torn apart by fights over resources that are running out, could building a new energy system, one based on sharing something that's infinite and free for everyone, like the sun and the wind, actually be the key to a more peaceful future? It's a pretty powerful idea, isn't it?